Everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Packaging Experience podcast. I know we've been gone for a minute, but we're happy to be back. And today we have a very exciting topic. But first, always with me, I got the fellas. Guys, how are you today?
Awesome, Jeff.
Hey, Jeff. Hey, Nico. How are you guys doing?
Not bad.
Very good.
Not bad. Ready to dive into this one. I know we've been talking about this one for some time, and let's dive into it. So the topic today is the hidden costs of down-gauging film. When everyone is focusing on downgrading, we just want to make sure you're making the best decision for you and your company. And that's kind of what we're going to dive in today. Again, I'm just the guy off the street. I got the two technical guys with me, and these are the ones that teach me as we go. And I'll stop them if they talk too much, just to kind of be like, whoa, pump the brakes here a little bit. Let's try to digress that a little bit. And but anyways, guys, let's get into the hidden costs of downgauging film.
Hey, thanks, Jeff. Yeah, it's just EPR taxes are coming. More and more states. I think we have 6 already that are collecting EPR or close to, and another 6 or 7 coming. And there's just going to be more and more states. So everybody, all the brand owners are like, how can we make a thinner bag so we pay less tax and use less plastic? And, Nico wanted to talk about this one, and it's a really good point because down gauging is a great idea, but there needs to be thought around the total impact of down gauging film, right, Nico?
Yes, it's not only let's do down gauge. Companies like Freedom Packaging that we focus on be a concierge company. We will guide you on how to do it properly. And right now, for the last few years, a lot of companies have done already their down gauge. Because that was the easy way to go sustainable for, let's say, for Walmart's requirements. So that's the easy way to do it when you can, and when your production allows it. But it's not just change the thickness of the film. You will compromise a couple of things that you need to be aware. And unless you have a very good company to assist you, like Freedom Packaging, this could be a nightmare. So what we do, we will talk about those hidden costs of doing that, or those pain points that you're going to have to deal. So that's part of the conversation of what we are trying to do today.
Yeah, that's awesome. Go ahead, Jeff.
I was just gonna piggyback off that. So we were kind of talking about like thinner film and individuals down gauging. Just for the the average consumer out there, does that normally mean there's going to be more breaks in that thinner film? I mean, what is kind of the negative to that when they are down gauging?
Yeah, you know what? Like, just for Jeff, like, maybe we just start a little bit with what is gauge and what does it mean, right? There's 3 ways to measure film thickness. One of them is mil. That is 1,000th of an inch. And then, so 1 mil is 1,000th of an inch, but that equals 100 gauge. I just want to make sure everybody understands what we're talking about. And if you're in Europe, 100 gauge or 1 mil equals 25 microns. So I just want to make sure that whether you're joining us from somebody that uses empirical measurements or the metric system, that we're all talking about the same thing here. We typically do 100 gauge just because it's easier. There's a bigger number there, but we could do mil or micron or whatever you want to discuss. But what we're talking about is, like, let's say we're doing food service and it's like a 64-ounce bag, and we always did it in a 3 mil surface print. And then all of a sudden the food service company like a Cisco or US Foods or something like that comes along and they're like, hey, we want to use less plastic. Can we try 2.5 mil? So we'll just take, back in the day, they would just take that same 3 mil structure and make it 2.5 mil, run it on their lines and see how it works. So that's what we're talking about with down gauging and thickness. I just want to make sure we understand all the units of measure that we're discussing and kind of what's going into that. So a lot of different
in common language, exactly what you say is the thickness of the film. So we have a 3, 2, 1 point whatever. So it is the thickness of the film and how that will perform on your machines and on your packaging once it's packed, once it's shipped, once it's put it on the shelf, and how that could affect your sales at the end, right?
Yep. And to Jeff's point, yes, if you keep going and downgauging, you leave yourself, especially us that are printing the film, for web breaks on the press. And if we have a web break on a press, that is a massive deal. You have to shut down the press and clean it up. It's not a big deal. Or let's say we get it through the press, but on your bagging line, your horizontal, vertical form, fill and seal line, you could get a web break there. I don't see that too often. We never go close enough to get to really web breaks, and we're engineering some stuff there. But the biggest issue, I think, Nico, is the runnability on the either our printing presses or our laminators. But that's not, we're pretty good at tensioning control, so we don't have problems because it's all servo motors, and like tensioning is really locked in on flexo presses with servo motors now. But it's really on your horizontal or vertical form, fill, and seal line, because they usually have like a rudimentary brake tensioning device. So it might not run as well there. So we should talk about a little bit of like the stretching that you could get into. We could talk about the heat seal window that you have, your heat seal curve. I mean, there's a lot of different things that we have to consider in there, but ultimately, can you run as fast? And how much waste are you getting in a production run at your facility when you're using a thinner gauge material?
Something additional that we were talking was also the capability of the machines. A lot of people do their investment in their flowback machines a few years ago, and the oldest the machine is, more struggles they will have with new structures. So in an ideal world, everyone will have the newest equipment, the new iPhone, the new Android, like just on the market. But the reality is that by while the time has passed, so a lot of people haven't been able to change their machines, or they're doing it one by one. So if this new machine will only run in your best machine, that's good, because you have the machine to operate it, but you will have to sacrifice a lot of other lines of production. So that's one of the things that you need to take care of.
Yeah, like I'm sorry, Jeff. As a business owner, let's say a bagging machine is $400,000, and I feel like we achieve our ROI on that piece of machinery in 3 or 4 years, right? Well, I'm going to want to keep that machine as long as possible, because now I feel like I've already paid it off, So like going and buying the latest and greatest iPhone, usually Verizon or whatever your provider is giving you basically that iPhone to keep you trapped. However, nobody just gives you a free $400,000 bagger, right? So it's a little different there, where you're like, it'd be awesome if I could upgrade our capital equipment all the time, but that's just not the reality. Most business owners are trying to squeeze every dollar and penny out of that machine, and they're going to get to a point to where they're constantly replacing parts and stuff like that. Or at some point, there's got to be a step change in either capabilities of that machine or speed and production speed of that machine to make you make that leap and get a new piece of capital equipment.
Using your metaphors about the cell phones, let's say if they're giving you the latest iPhone or the latest Android, but the network, in this case the machines, is 2G, we won't do a thing. You can have the best film, but if the network is not appropriate for that, you're playing with something that is not, it won't work.
Yeah. It's like, let me Google that. And then you hear your phone make the dial-up noise. Beep, on your cell phone. You're like, cool phone.
Yeah. What did I pay for?
I'm downloading the song. It'll be done in 4.5 hours.
Yeah. Your phone's going to die in that time frame.
A lot of people have now related to what we're saying because of that example. So that's good.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. So, all right. So maybe like let's regroup. So we have a brand owner. They come to us at Freedom Packaging or another packaging converter, and they say, hey, we want to look at all of our film and see what we could do to decrease our EPR tax liability through downgauging. All right. So maybe if your partner isn't great, maybe they're just they should look at it, and we would look at it and have an engineering team and look at the drop and the speeds and stuff like that. And we're not just going to take what you're using today at 2.5 mil and give you 2 mil, because we would know if we just made it thinner across the board, that is probably not going to run well. So, the accounting department at your company might be like, great, we just saved 25% on our film cost per pound, right? This is awesome. It looks great. But then your operator gets the film in, and as opposed to only having to toss out bad seals on a production run of, let's say, 30,000 bags. And maybe with the thicker film, he only has to toss out like 4 or 5, but maybe with the thinner film, the seals weren't good and the drop was causing it to bust at the bottom, or they had to run slower. So either the production time took longer, or as opposed to 3 or 4 bags out of 30,000 that you had to toss in the trash, now it's, 2,000 or 3,000, and you're getting close to that 1% waste range. So what you saved on your initial PO may have been offset by what you threw away in the trash of unusual bags. So, and this is really where companies struggle with the left arm and the right arm not knowing what each other is doing, right? So accounting team wants to make, or procurement team wants to make a decision based in the vacuum of what lowers their costs. The production guy wants to make decisions on, I don't care about costs. I don't see that. I don't report on costs. I report on how many bags I've lost and on my production speed and my throughput per hour. And those things are in direct competition with each other. So it really makes sense to have like more of a holistic meeting with a company or a brand owner like that. It's like, okay, let's talk about what you want from an accounting side and an EPR tax side. And then what we need, what are the requirements of the production team as well. If you just do one or the other, you're either probably paying too much for your packaging, but it runs awesome, or your packaging is super cheap and your production manager is going to quit because he can't get it to run on his line. So that's kind of where we're at now. So what we try to do, and I know I'm pontificating here, is we try to engineer, like, well, we can make it thinner, but can we make it perform better or the same as what your current thicker substrate is? And there's a lot of things we could do to do that. And I could get into that, but also, Nico, maybe can you talk about
the structure, like that's the easy way to try to achieve the goals of EPR, but you need to also be on what is happening now with the new structures. At the beginning, new structures might be more expensive than just downgauging, but you will be very focusing on, let's say, recyclable. A lot of companies achieve until now, they have achieved their sustainable goals by downgauging, but with a film that is not recyclable. So at the end, all this legislation will push you to recycle. So maybe it's the time to not downgauge. It's maybe the time to make that extra investment. And that's what we're going to advise you, because if you do a lot of things just to reduce something that is very temporary, a lot of companies decide to do, I will change when they make me change. But when you change only until the last moment, a lot of the times, or most of the time, you're not going to be ready to won that big bid with your retailer that you want to have. But if you are doing the right thing, or not the right thing, the sustainable thing, where everything is pushing out, and you're ready and you're already selling that material and proving that you can do it, you will have an advantage differentiator versus your competitors. So that's part of the conversation that we also have. Okay, downgauge is one thing, but we can also go to the structure where the EPR is focusing, like to be more sustainable. It's more sustainable to have less waste that is not going to be recycled, but it's more sustainable having a structure that is recyclable, or it's more sustainable a structure that is compostable. The different levels of sustainability.
Yeah. That's exactly what we focus. Oh, sorry. I was just going to say that's exactly what we talk about all the time is, making that investment to help, the Earth, the planet. So, and I feel like going, like you were saying, just going up that extra gauge and making sure that it is recyclable is very important. But, again, we can't put someone's hand on the product that they're actually looking for. You know what I mean? They're just saying, hey, I want this one gauge, etc. We try to suggest it, but again, it's ultimately their decision.
Right. Like, to your point, Nico, there's a lot more in fresh that's done polypropylene, but it seems like a lot of polypropylene is maybe getting overcome by polyethylene, because polyethylene has a store drop-off certification in the United States, right? So you do see people maybe trying to switch out, or even like shrink wrap for mushrooms, right? Doing, how it comes in the cart, and then the shrink wrap, then it's got the macro holes on top, so it allows some of the moisture to escape from the mushrooms. That shrink wrap, and a lot of times, was PVC. And now they're and PVC is like a demon name in the plastic world. A lot of people don't like PVC, or even a barrier coating PVDC, if you're familiar with that. But anything with polyvinyl chloride or polyvinyl dichloride, not much you can do with that. It's pretty bad for the environment. So you see a lot of companies that are trying to just get rid of either that barrier coating in their film or PVC and swap it out with polyethylene because, to your point, Nico, it is a recyclable structure or a recyclable film that you could take to store drop off.
Yeah. We'll talk about the different verticals and the different offers that we provide. So we can go particularly. Do you want to start with frozen? Do you want me to start with fresh produce? Talking about
I feel like I've talked 80% of the time. Please start with fresh, buddy. Let me know what's going on there.
Let's say that I want to point out the things that most people don't know. So yes, we can down gauge, and we will do it. We will always say yes when we will say yes to your requirements, but we will always advise you and let you know what needs to be, what things you need to pay attention. So if when we down gauge on fresh produce and we're using, for example, MAP, we have talked in other podcasts on vectors. What is MAP? Modified atmosphere. So by changing the thickness of the film, you need to know that you will need to change a lot of things and other things to still have that modified atmosphere that you want. Because the thinner the film, you will have a higher transmission rate. So whatever micro perforation you have done, let's say in 40 microns for your asparagus, for your green bean, for whatever, is not going to perform the same on shelf life. Maybe you will start to see that your product is getting dehydrated or shriveling. So you will need to, your provider will need to adjust the micro perforation. That's not difficult. At some point, there are limits where you can play with that with the films. If you go too low, you won't be able to provide the proper shelf life that you want to do. Other things that you need to pay attention when you down gauge is that the sealed integrity. The thicker the film, it will be more easy for you to operate it and seal it on your machine. But when you down gauge, you will start to burn at a lower temperature, at the temperature that you were used to, and you will not get the proper seal that you wanted to. And also, if you down gauge too much, imagine like having the film when it goes to the machine, it starts flat and it goes here, let's say, to do the film seal. If it is too loose, the machine won't be able to catch it properly, and you will start to run it. And let's say after 5 minutes, you will get loose of the machine. So you will have to stop the production, make your operation to cut it, stretch it, put it again, and you will struggle all the time. So your operation, all the automatization that you invest for, is going to be almost as manual because you're going to stop your production all the time. So it is important to make a proper trial before that and find what's the right thickness, the lowest thickness that you can use. And if you go, there's another thing that is important, the mechanical strength. You're going to lower the resistance of the puncture resistance or the tear resistance. So if you're having green beans and you know that is on a vertical and they're dropping the green beans, maybe you will start to poke all the bag. So, or maybe after, when you already have your bag already packed and you're moving it to the boxes, it might rip if it's not strong enough because of what is inside the package.
Yeah, that last one is a huge issue with frozen too, because obviously being that the contents are frozen during the drop, they could be sharp and pointy and poke through, not like certain vegetables we don't have problems with, right? Like broccoli florets or something that's kind of not that dense and it's got a softer drop, no problem. But if we start doing shoestring French fries and it's like a 3-pound drop of a bunch of thin French fries, it's like tiny frozen spears hitting that bag. So if we go
green beans,
green beans,
when they're frozen, they're
yeah, exactly. Or we did fire roasted peaches and they weren't pulling the stems off the peaches. So like when they would drop, the stems were just poking through. And sometimes we have to deploy nylon or something non-recyclable in order to help with that puncture drop. And then that's kind of to your original point. It's like, okay, now we're adding nylon, but now it's not recyclable. So it's thinner, but you've gone to a single-use plastic. That's a step in the wrong direction, assuming that recyclable plastic is making it back into the stream. If it's all going into the landfill anyway, then it doesn't really matter. So make sure you're putting the stuff into your recycle bin, and make sure you're taking your polyethylene to store drop off. That's my shameless sustainability plug, to put the responsibility on you, the consumer, to do your part and make sure it gets back into the stream. Nico, there's a couple things I wanted to talk about that you mentioned that maybe we could just expand a little bit upon to help Jeff and like people that aren't packaging nerds like us. So the two biggest transmission rates that we look at, for freshness is MVTR, which is moisture vapor transmission rate, and OTR, which is oxygen transmission rate. So how fast
does water vapor transmission rate and OTR? That's what we mostly
WVTR. Yeah.
Yes.
So WVTR, moisture. I've heard it like MTR, WVTR, MVTR. Basically, how fast does water go through the bag, and how fast does oxygen go through the bag? Right. So obviously, if you have a thicker bag of the same exact material, it would take oxygen and water longer to go through that bag. So when we're down gauging, obviously, it's a less torturous path to go through there. So what Nico is saying is, as we down gauge, then the oxygen transmission rate and the moisture vapor or water vapor transmission rate increases, and that can have an impact on your shelf life and your just on your shelf life and how those things actually stay fresh. So by down gauging,
you can dry the product or you can burn the product. So it is good to have a good higher transmission rate, but it depends on the product that is inside. Some products are very sensitive to high transmission rate, others need a lower transmission rate. So only by changing the film, you are affecting your current specs and what makes that product have a longer shelf life.
Right. So, and that's why, like, when they come to us and say, hey, can we down gauge? We're going to look at each individual item, what is being packed there, how it's currently being packed. And there might be some items where it's like, no, I don't think you can. But on some things, to Nico's point about the runnability and stuff like that, we could do stuff. We have a really good case study with a co-packer that asked us to do an analysis of their film and if we could down gauge. And most of their stuff at like the 32 ounce range, 40 ounce range was done in like a 2 mil or 2.25 mil. And we were able to bring all of that stuff down to a 1.75 mil structure. So did they save that entire percentage of less plastic? No. And here's why. Because we had to engineer the 1.75 to work like the 2 mil or the 2.25 mil. And there's some things we could do to add dimensional stability to polyethylene, like blend in some medium density. We typically are using low density polyethylene for our bags because it's very flexible and it seals easily, but we'll blend in the middle, in the very middle layer, we'll blend some medium density, and that adds some dimensional stability. It adds some drop test stability as well. And then to your point, Nico, about it doesn't seal as well, we'll add some maybe some chemical additives to the sealant layer to make it seal well, like it was a thicker material, like metallocene helps drop the seal initiation temperature, and that helps increase your window. Because what you're talking about is like, hey, this bag will seal at 180 degrees or 500 degrees. That's a huge window. And your bagger line, your temperatures are going to vary. But as we go to a thinner gauge, that seal window narrows. So if your bagger is going like this, and all of a sudden it gets too hot, you burn bags. It gets too low, they don't seal. It gets too hot, you burn bags. It gets too low, it doesn't seal. So you're having to pull those bags off the line because they're rejects. And now all of a sudden your reject rate goes from 0.05% to 2%. And that's a lot of waste. So this
from the sustainability point of view, if you don't gauge, you are using less plastic. But there's a misconception that lower cost per pound will be lower cost per package, and you just explained it. So in order to make your machine operable in the same performance as before, there's additional additives that needs to be placed. So if you're down gauging 25%, I'm just saying a number, that doesn't mean that your costing is going to get low 25%. That's not the reality, because we need to compensate one thing with the other. It will be more sustainable, less plastic at the end, but the cost might be very similar. So my invitation is, okay, let's start looking on what recyclable structures we can offer to your line of production. And most likely it's going to be more expensive now, but you're going to achieve those, or you're going to save money on those future taxes once it hits your state, if it hasn't hit it yet.
That's perfect. That's exactly what we saw in our case study. So we were able to reduce the film by about what did I say, like from 2 to 1.75. So that's like an eighth of the cost, but they didn't lose 13% of their cost. The cost was only a reduction of about 5% because we had to do a lot more engineering into that thinner film. But still, a 5% cost savings is awesome. But they didn't lose any speed or productivity on it, which is great. And then to your point, so they're saving money. They've reduced their weight by 1/8. So that's going to be less EPR tax responsibility that they have. So they're saving on their per bag procurement side by 5%. And then when that tax bill comes, they've decreased the total weight into that state on that product by 13.25%, so it was a really nice case study on that one. And that's something that, just to set expectations, we're not going to get wins across the board, especially if a lot of the gauging has been driven out already. Right. And we kind of talked about this in our first little opening to 2026, is that on stuff that sells really cheap at the retail level, like $2 or $3, probably have already been downgauged to hell anyway, because there's just not a lot of money. Right. But something like in the pet industry or cannabis industry where you're selling, pet treats and it's a bag this big for $20, or cannabis, it's a bag this big for $50 of flour, you can hide extra packaging spend there. So there's probably more downgauging and stuff that merchandises at a higher dollar amount at the store to the end user.
It depends the product, as you mentioned, and a lot of times what you sell with the package is the experience. Sometimes of course, the product is going to be more expensive than the package, but there's sometimes a very expensive package that sells the experience or the mentality of excellence or quality. But at the end, in the inside might be not the best thing. But through packaging packaging is marketing in this case. So that's how you sell the experience. So the same water that you buy at home, it will cost you more if you bought it on the airport or if you bought it on the airplane. So the same product will cost different depends on where it is. So the packaging, with the pet industry, you mentioned that's something very emotional buy, because you're buying for someone that you love. How ideally you will do something similar for your parents, a wife, kids, and you know that you're going to buy the best thing. But maybe. I don't know why with those it's easy for people to buy. I want this special treat, but at the store level, I might buy conventional products instead of organic, or with some pesticides, or things that has pesticides or not, or the way it has been fed, the meat that you're buying. There's a lot of different things that we don't pay attention, but depending on the industry, we do.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Like maybe it's the psychology of the dog shelf life. That's hilarious. Lifespan is. Well, dogs' lifespans are way shorter than ours.
If you improve the quality of the food of your dog, the shelf life will be
You're increasing the shelf life of the dog. Yeah. Paging Dr. Freud on that one, right? I gotta get out of my packaging brain. But yeah, like it's like maybe you have like 10 dogs throughout your life, and every time, I mean, for me, every time I've had to put a dog down or I've lost a dog, it's the hardest things in the world. It's a rough little bit, So
yeah, I do want to go back to whenever you were kind of talking about like where it's going through the machine, right? And it gets through where it's hot and then cold and then you're burning it and it's not sealing. Usually, I mean, because customers are always looking for like a timely, receiving the package in a timely manner. Don't you think, in my opinion, kind of how I'm looking at it is maybe if they're scrapping more material, they're losing more time. So downgauging is not always necessarily the most important or the most, I don't know, maybe I'm phrasing that wrong, but
sometimes it will be the best option when you can do it, but there's a point that you cannot go lower than you have already done, and that's when you will need to change the structure to something that is actually sustainable. So when you can, let's do it, because that's the easy and fastest way to reduce plastic consumption. But not in every case that will be what you can do.
Yeah. If I were a co-packer, Jeff, like here's how it could cost you time, or a co-packer creating a bad customer experience for a brand owner is I have to pack out 50,000 bags of 16-ounce steamed broccoli. Let's just say. So I'm gonna buy 6 60 or 55,000, assuming 10% waste, right? And then all of a sudden I get this down gauge and my waste goes to 20%. And now I cannot fulfill the demand for the 50,000 bags. I've only got 42,000 bags or something like that. So now I'm shorting, let's say it's Walmart or Costco or whatever. I'm giving them less. That means they have less in their stores to sell and they're getting stock outs. When co-packers, if I have my co-packer hat on, if I'm shorting my customer, I'm letting my customer down. They're expecting a certain amount of products to be able to sold in their stores and I'm not delivering. And we all know that, let's say we are short, Flex pack, especially flexo printed and laminated flex pack, there's a lead time. So if you call me in an emergency and say, I need 30,000 more bags right away, or else I'm going to short my customer. We all know I can't just be like, oh yeah, I got it on the shelf. Here you go. Unless you're inventorying that particular product. But if we have to do a brand new production run, now you're looking at, we could pull some miracles and maybe do something in 3 to 4 weeks with break-in fees and stuff like that, that cost money, again, to me as a co-packer, just to try to make my customer happy. So it could snowball from a little issue. Hey, I downgauged, yay. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, that was a complete nightmare. I just lost a big customer because we started shorting them. They fired me for a more reliable co-packer. So yeah, I saved 10 or 15% on my packaging spend, but I just lost a $2 million customer walking out the door. That's worst case scenario. And that's what can happen. And that's why we want to tread lightly and try to consider all of the different impacts that downgauging can have on your operation, not just the cost and not just the weight of the bag being reduced.
We want to advise you or guide you in what you were saying. It reminds me to I think it was Napoleon that let's not focus on winning the battle, more winning the war. So if you just save money on that instance or reducing or doing what you think it will save you some money, by changing vendor, by changing the quality, by changing for a cheaper structure, maybe you save money on that moment, but then you lose the war because you lose that client or that account that was really important. So we will always try to guide you on what we think is best. You're the owner of the account. You know what to do. You know your business. But because we know the part of our business, which is packaging, we will guide you from our point of view. Because a lot of times, this issue, every time there's needs to cut on budget, the first thing they take a look is on packaging, and that could be a very, very bad decision if you don't integrate all your teams, as Tom was mentioning at the beginning, like an holistic meeting where you put operations and marketing themselves and everyone involved and accounting to see how will this affect our brand.
Right. And even, I mean, you could even pull HR in there, right? Like if you are shoving film down the throats of your production team that doesn't run well, you could lose really good operators as well. It's just like, this is a nightmare. I come into work and I just fight with this machine all day long, right? It's like, well, I could go here and it's a different company and they did it the right way. And it's more like, okay, my biggest issue is speeding up my changeovers to the newest items so that we're increasing our throughput, not sitting here fighting on every production line where you have to babysit and make sure it works. You know, and we kind of touched on earlier, Nico, your point about the flexibility across the machines. You have 6 bagging lines. This is a tough film to run, so it only runs on your brand new matrix or your brand new triangle that's really dialed in with its heat settings and has maybe coated Teflon jaws or some sort of coating on those jaws that help it to run. So that creates a flexibility issue.
And that HR point that you mentioned, that we know that machine operators are really stressed all the time. They have like a quota. They need to make everything happen. And I have experience when we go and do a trial, they don't have too much patience because you are trying to do something new. In their mind, they are, I'm using time that I need to fulfill the goals that I have, or I don't have time. So they give it a shot. And if he's a very patient, nice guy, he will give it another shot and try to mix it up. But most of the cases, they're like, this doesn't work. And they get stressed because they have a lot of pressure on their end. It's not their fault. That's the pressure of the job.
Yeah, and that's why we support trial rolls not only with free trial material, but we want to be on site. I mean, there's an old rule of thumb as a packaging converter. Every trial that you send to a packer or co-packer won't run on their lines unless you're there, right? Because to your point, they have things to do. So we also offer, like, as part of our concierge services, let's say you're running 2 shifts a day and the second shift ends at 8 p.m. We'll come at 8 p.m. and do the trial. So we're not interrupting your production time, or like over the weekends, or a time where we can actually do it with less pressure on the production team to be like, okay, you only have 30 minutes to do this trial. A lot of times trials take way more than that because we're trying to figure out your seal window, right? So we want to run some bags until we get a good seal, and then just keep raising temperatures till it fails. And then we know exactly what our window is. We set our target temperature in the middle so that hopefully those fluctuations in temperature still stay within the operating window of that heat seal curve of that particular film. And it's not always easy to dial that in. So downgauging, do it with caution. What else did we want to talk about? Anything?
At least to remind you, we're not just a business. We are not just a converter. Freedom is a business thinking. We're always going to advise you. We want to be your trust advisor. And although it's love to hear yes all the time from someone, we will give you the but always, just to guide you properly. We prefer to be that obstacle in the middle of your current goals, but not the obstacle on your mindset, not on what you want to achieve. We're going to tell you, yes, but let's do it this way, or yes, let's try this different. Because it's easy just to say yes to be condescending, but we don't. We prefer to have a rough beginning to later provide you a very smooth operation and performance.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Always continue to wanting to learn.
Yeah, and we do the same thing with like some of our products where it's like, oh, well, if we down-gauge, it's going to be this. People will make promises that they can down-gauge and save you a ridiculous amount on your packaging spend. And it's like, like we said, it doesn't equate to, if you reduce your weight by 25%, you reduce your cost by 25%. Because if you did that, then we fear that your shelf life, runnability, all those different things would come into play for sure.
One thing that we can help everyone to save some money, and that's part of our capability. We have domestic production and nearshore production. So it depends on the product and the application. We can sometimes lower the cost depending on where we are fabricating. And that's something that you need to be aware of as well. Like same as the quality of the film needs to be the quality of the plant, the quality of the people involved. We take responsibility of everything that we offer. And when the occasion allows us to do it, we can provide you with a different solution, like same quality, but producing in a different area that might save you some money. So that's part of the analysis that we do. What will be the best for you according to what we have to offer.
That's right. Now all we have to do is trick some brand owners into watching our pep talks and podcasts, and we'll be good to go. On a completely non sequitur, I had frost on my windshield this morning and all over my ground in Sarasota, and we might get snow flurries on Saturday in Sarasota. It's only snowed here one other time. That's wild.
If it snows on Sarasota, I will need to drive there because my kids haven't seen the snow yet, and they are complaining every day that I haven't taken to the snow. So I might take the drive.
It's supposed to be, I think.
Here's your snow.
Yeah. Just little flakes.
Yeah.
North Carolina and South Carolina is getting heavy snow right now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, not great. Like, I don't want people to lose power and everything like that. But one other time when I was like 10, we had like an accumulation of 1 inch of snow on cars because the cars were cold enough to stick. It wouldn't stick to the ground, but that might happen again. Nico, do your kids stay up crazy late? Like Spaniards do? Yeah.
Yeah, if I don't send them to sleep, they can last until 2 a.m., 3 a.m.
Yep.
If the TV's on or whatever, they're like that. My kids, not every kid, my kids. I need to send them to sleep and close on, shut down everything. Otherwise,
yeah, that's hilarious. The reason I asked is because I think it's probably going to be like 1 a.m. if we were going to get them at any time. So start your trek at like 10 p.m. Hey, honey, we're going for a road trip. We'll be back in 6 hours.
And it didn't
And if
snow.
it doesn't snow, we'll fake it.
Yeah, get on the top of the roof
I'll
and
chop
just
up some
shave.
paper. Yeah, and get the like the blower.
They already passed that stage when they used to have there's snow in that foam snow that they do at the malls. That's not snow. They already know that. They already passed that age when I can treat them.
Gotcha. That's too bad.
Yeah, we only had a little bit of snow here. It snowed in the morning, and then of course the sun came out, and it's of course just melted now. So it's not really sticking. But the higher you go up, it's sticking. You could see it from, if you were to walk out front, you could see it on the hill. So
yeah, and just for the listeners that don't know, I'm in Sarasota, Florida. Nico's down in Miami, and Jeff is outside of Boise. Are you close to Boise? In Idaho?
Yeah, I'm in Nampa. About 15 minutes west.
Tom and myself, our winter story are nothing close to what everyone is experiencing right now in the US. And I know that it is freezing. If we're experiencing cold here, I can imagine what you're dealing with.
Yeah, especially in Wisconsin and all those other states.
This is my thickest quarter sip, and really, I rarely wear this in Florida. This is for California, but this morning I took it for sure.
It's crazy. Yeah, crazy weather.
All right, we're going to wrap up on downgauging. Did we miss anything?
I don't think so.
We hit all our points.
And if we miss something and someone wants to say something additional or contradict us, please welcome and do it and send us a direct message. We would love to discuss it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Awesome. All right, first full packaging experience podcast of 2026 is in the books. Everybody.
Yes.
Good stuff.
Yeah, this was a good one. I know we were wanting to talk about this one for a while, and I'm glad that Nico brought this one to our attention. So good topic, Nico. Well done, brother.
Yeah.
So that pretty much wraps up this episode. We hope you enjoyed it. It was a good 40-minute conversation. We went back and forth where I just played the guy that doesn't know anything, and Tom and Nico are the brains and bronze. So
you can say subscribe here or here or here. I don't know where it's going to say it.
Yeah.
Ring the bell.
Yeah, ring the bell. Yeah. So, but we appreciate all you guys listening. We appreciate all the feedback, and kind of to piggyback off of what Nico said. Yeah, we're open to getting feedback. Anybody that wants to join the podcast, these are 45 minutes to an hour. We would love to have, just anyone, a listener, someone that's into the packaging world, just anything in general. And we're open arms for that. So, but we hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
Have a good day.
Awesome.